I'm Luke and I work in simulated training for the Ministry of Defence. Simulated training is not a new thing. It's been around for hundreds of years, from soldiers stabbing sandbags with bayonets to practice bayonet skills to now we have fully functioning motion platform tank driver trainers. But it all boils down to the same thing, which is saving money. It's really expensive to transport lots of people all around the world to do their live training. So when it does come to that, it's a good idea that the soldiers actually know what they're doing. Think of it like this. You have a driver simulator in your house. If you play on that driver simulator for 2 hours a day for a month and then go out and start taking lessons, you will save a lot of money on lessons because you already know what you're doing, because you've done the driver simulator. So yeah, it's essentially that. Our main issue that we have at the moment, especially when it comes to the virtual world, is we have this thing called negative training. Now, negative training is something that the video game allows you to do that you can't do in real life. So one of them, for example, would be bullet jams. So you don't normally get round damages in video games, but that happens all the time in the real world. So if a soldier was trained on this video game to complete operations and there is no bullet jams, then he's going to believe that that's not going to happen in the real world, and therefore that is considered negative training. Because what happens if it does? What have we trained him to do if it does happen in the real world? So my task to you is to essentially look at video games, which is not a hard job, I'm sure, and to determine how realistic some of these video games are and what can be considered as negative training if they were ever going to be delivered as an actual training thing. So I've got some stuff on the backboard here that I'll go through after this and give you an example of what I want, but essentially I want the scientific and mathematical method of how you came to this and how it is going to be considered negative training if Call of Duty, Need for Speed, Sims, any video game really, was to be conducted in a simulated training environment. Okay, so one of the projects that you could potentially do for this project is to look at the difference between real life bullet drop and the one used in video games. If we take Call of Duty for example, you have a weapon called the AX-50, which is a 50 caliber sniper rifle. It's a real gun, so there's information online about it. One of the information I picked up from it is the barrel velocity is 900 meters per second. So basically it means that when the bullet leaves the barrel, it is traveling at 900 meters per second. Another thing that we need to do to calculate this is give ourselves a random distance. So I've given ourselves 300 meters. So that's going to be from point A to point B. So to work out the speed of which it will get from point A to point B, we need to do 300 divided by 900, which will give you 0.3 recurring. So that is the speed, that is the time taken that it will take to get from point A to point B. The next thing that we need to consider is the pull of gravity. So gravity is an acceleration at 9.81 meters per second. We have a bunch of assumptions as well to take into consideration. I've added a bunch of other things here, but realistically the main one we need to consider is that we're not considering wind, and we're also not considering drag. So this is going to be mathematically accurate in a vacuum, for example. So now we've got all the information, all the numbers that we need, we can put it into our SUVAT equation. So for those of you who don't know, SUVAT equations are essentially like your speed equals distance over time, but with a few extra steps, including acceleration, initial velocity, final velocity, all that fun stuff. So I'll try and explain it in a simple way. The one that we're going to be using is S equals ut plus half at squared. So S is distance, which equals the initial velocity, which is how fast it was going at the start, times by time, plus half the current acceleration, and the time taken as well, and that all squared. So now, because we have no initial velocity, because at the time it's not going anywhere, we can get rid of the ut part. So we have s equals half of the acceleration times the time taken squared. So it will be 9.81, half of 9.81 times 0.33 squared, which will give you 0.534 meters. So if you fired dead straight, it will drop 0.534 meters in 0.3 seconds for the 300 meters. So we're going to consider this with Call of Duty. Call of Duty might take wind resistance into account, so their bullet drop might be a little bit more than ours, but it's something that we can figure out. So I'm going to go play, and I'll record the data that I find.
I managed to convince someone to actually do this. So me and a friend of mine conducted this experiment where essentially he stood next to an explosive charge and I had to try and shoot it 300 meters away. We essentially shot it from the crosshairs originally, and obviously it missed because Call of Duty does have bullet drop, and then we slowly went up with different shots until it finally exploded. So as you can see on the picture, where the round exploded was pretty much at the bottom of where the crosshairs bold section is. But then we worked out from the average height of the human roughly what the distance was between the actual cross of the crosshairs and how far down it should have been, and we determined that actually Call of Duty has a bit of a higher bullet drop than real life. But when we did our original calculations, because we didn't want the entire lesson to take all day, we didn't take wind resistance or temperature or anything or drag into account, and therefore Call of Duty might have taken that. They might have had a constant for drag and wind resistance, which might have mean why their bullet drop is slightly higher. It might be something for you guys to think about and something to help you along with your project, or you can add to this if you want. But this is the sort of stuff that we're looking at. So good luck and take care.